A quick note before we get into the episode. Oversharing is a podcast for entertainment purposes only. It is not a medical podcast and does not constitute medical or psychological advice. Always seek the advice of your physician or mental health professional.
All right, let's do some intentions. I'll read them. Hi, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. I'd love your help with an intention for insomnia. I've had trouble falling and staying asleep for as long as I can remember. It's always hard to turn my brain off. Lately, I've been in a particularly rough stretch of bad sleep. I feel like my awareness of my insomnia is only making it worse. I just can't help not to over-try to fall asleep. I'll do all the sleep hygiene tactics, meditating, stretching, boring podcasts, leaving the room, mindless TV, etc. Then I'm super upset when they fail and I'm left agonizing over how I'm going to survive the day. It's a bad cycle. What can I tell myself when I'm feeling this stuck and frustrated? I just can't seem to accept when I'm going to be sleeping 2 to 3 hours a night, especially during the work week. I'm a relatively new mental health therapist. I always think of Dr. Naomi's story of the therapist who fell asleep in session in a job where I'm sitting all day listening in a comfy chair. I can totally see this happening to me. Help. Thanks so much. A sleepy bitch.
I hear this too. I'm sure. I think this is a human condition that we've all experienced at least one point or another, but definitely as a therapist. And like I said, for those of you that didn't hear, many years ago, I was in therapy and the therapist was literally eyes closed, head tilted, falling asleep during the session. And I never, ever, ever wanted that to be me. So even to this day, when I have my evening sessions, I work sometimes, until 9 o'clock at night. And I will almost always try to take a little power nap before my evenings, just to kind of that's how I personally reset because of that experience. So I get it as someone who's having a one-on-one where someone's really intimately sharing their intense feelings. The last thing you ever want to do is fall asleep. And the fear of that as a mental health practitioner is real. So validated.
And I can also relate to what she's saying in terms of all the good practices, you're trying to implement them. Sometimes it just does not work.
Yes.
Because that's the annoying thing about all the sleep advice you get, because sometimes you do it all and you're still lying there. And then you're kind of I already did the sleep meditation and the no phone and the blackout shades. And I'm just here thinking about this all night, and there's nothing I can do.
Totally. When you're trying to control these processes in your body that are supposed to be automatic, it can feel like you really get into this vicious cycle. This isn't so dissimilar to me than people that struggle with erectile dysfunction, where it's I'm worried about not getting it up and what's going to happen if it doesn't work, and it's going to be so embarrassing. And in this case, it's I'm going to be exhausted all day. I'm not going to function well. Or in that case, it's I'm going to be mortified. I'm not going to be, I'm going to get into the shame cycle. And so I'm thinking really hard about, I hope it works. It better work. And then of course you're thinking about it. And so therefore you're stressing yourself out, and then it doesn't work. So you're trying to control these automatic processes that are supposed to just kind of happen naturally. And then when you do that, you probably end up making it worse, which is what everyone who's experienced insomnia feels. So my advice is to allow yourself to come to the realization that you can refuel, you can rest without actually falling asleep. And that might take the pressure over actually sleeping and just allow you to be okay, this is going to refuel my brain. This is going to refuel my body. I can rest and recharge even if I don't actually fall into unconscious sleep. I can rest just by being still. I can rest by lying here in quiet. I can rest in this moment where I have nothing that I have to do. And even in all the strategies that you try, instead of looking at them as these are strategies that are not working, looking at them as I am resting as I am doing these strategies. This is rest. This is, kind of helping, even if it doesn't, focusing on the journey, not the destination, when you're doing whatever the, sleep strategies are.
I like that a lot because it takes the pressure off of for me to have success with this, I need to be asleep.
Yes.
And then you're more likely to become asleep. Although again, like you shouldn't think of it that way. Like maybe I just need to tell myself that I don't care. I guess it can come off that way, but it's not really about that. I remember someone telling me that like years ago, like you're still resting even if you're not sleeping.
Yes.
You're still recharging even if you're not sleeping.
Totally. So whatever it is that you're doing, if it was like, some people will say there's a million strategies that people try, maybe like rewatching a show that you've watched a million times. Like that's still resting. It's still like just allowing your body to sit in stillness and your mind to kind of be quiet because what's going to happen in this show. You're not like eagerly anticipating anything. Or even if you're doing breathing or breath work, it's not like I'm doing the breath work so that I can fall asleep. Like I am resting within this breath work. And one breath work strategy that I've been doing with my groups that I've been personally doing a lot lately that I find really helpful is, you take your breath, you take a nice deep breath, and then at the top of your breath, you take like a little extra sip of air, and then you slowly release on the out breath, that extra breath. So sometimes what that does is a lot of people do have trouble really slowing down their breath because you feel like I don't have enough air. Like I feel like I'm choking or I don't have enough breath, and that's stressful. So taking that little extra sip of air at the top of your breath will naturally allow you to elongate your out breath a little bit more. And that way it can the out breath is in a lot of ways what sends the signal to your brain to allow your nervous system to relax if you can elongate your out breath. So if you do this breath work strategy, that can help just calm your nervous system and just telling yourself, I am recharging and resting, and I will be more rested tomorrow, even if I don't fall asleep, just because I'm lying here and breathing or watching the show that I've watched 17 times before, or, any kind of activity that just you're doing in stillness and quiet and kind of doing calmly is going to be more restful than, whatever you're doing during your daily life, working out or strategizing or coming up with a treatment plan for a patient or any of that. So
I like that stuff a lot.
The intention for her is I can still rest and refuel in safety and stillness. You don't need sleep only is not the only way to rest and refuel.
What I have found works for me is, again, not to give her another method that also might not help, is like usually when I can't sleep, I'm like re-going over a problem over and over again, or like ruminating on something that I'm anxious about. And if I write it down, it does actually help like release it, because then
like
your
brain dump.
Right. Your brain is like, okay, you've dealt with this, even if you've written down like your fears or your issues here, and now you can like release it a little bit. It does actually help.
Totally. Yep. That's a great strategy too, because it convinces your mind like we're not going to we're addressing this. And that's what happens a lot. That's why people have disturbing dreams a lot of times. If you are falling asleep, you have the disturbing dreams because your subconscious is like, we will address this, whether you want to or not. So if you're consciously addressing it, it might allow you to just kind of convince yourself, your psyche, okay, I'm paying attention to this. I don't need to keep thinking about it in order to make sure that I'm paying attention to it. It's right here on this paper, right on my bedside.
Let's do some triggers. Do you want to read our first one?
Hi, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. Love the podcast and your sister dynamic on the show. With Valentine's Day behind us, I thought I'd share a triggered scenario you might find amusing. At the time this happened, I would have rated my trigger at a level 7, but now with some distance, it's probably more like a 4. This year, my husband and I were celebrating our first Valentine's Day as a married couple. Even before we got married, we always acknowledged the holiday in some way, usually dinner, flowers, candy, and a card. So naturally, we planned to keep the tradition going and made reservations at our favorite Chinese restaurant. At some point, my husband mentioned our Valentine's Day plans to his brother and sister-in-law. After that conversation, my brother-in-law asked my husband if we wanted to go on a double date with them and our nephews at a restaurant they like. Ironically, that restaurant is literally down the street from the Chinese place we had already planned to go. My husband politely declined. I assumed that was the end of it, but nope. While we were getting ready to leave for a Valentine's Day dinner, my brother-in-law called again to ask once more if we wanted to double date. My husband said no again, clearly stating that we didn't want to spend Valentine's Day that way. Then, during our dinner, my brother-in-law started texting my husband asking if we wanted to get together after we finished eating. Toward the end of our meal, he even called twice to see if we had changed our minds and wanted to meet up with them and the kids. We didn't. We stuck to our original plan and enjoyed our night together. What triggered me was the persistence. Despite being told multiple times, my brother-in-law kept pushing, trying to insert himself into our Valentine's Day plans. For context, this is pretty on brand for him. He's a difficult person and routinely ignores boundaries, even when they're clearly stated. So how triggered can I be? Sincerely, boundary issues with a side of lo mein.
I don't know, because it was like, I feel like because it was her husband having to deal with him, I don't think it's that triggering. I almost find it more amusing. Like, this guy really does not want to be alone with his wife on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I found that I would find, if this was me, I think I would just be oh my God, he's calling again. Like, this is funny. I would find it amusing. I agree.
I guess obviously it's like the trigger of whatever boundary stuff. He's like extremely persistent despite being politely told no. I guess it's more about the history of that and like her irritation about it.
And I get, because it is tough. Even that first boundary of like, oh, hey, like, you're around, we're around. Do you want to do something? And the answer is no, we are actually going to spend it alone together.
Which of any day of the year to decline for that reason
is like,
I feel like this
acceptable day. That and like your anniversary or whatever. Yes. Right. Totally. But I do think she's probably, like you said, just tired of having to be so persistent with these boundaries. Like, it almost makes you feel, and I wonder if this is part of what she's feeling, like it makes you feel like mean after a while, especially if what they're asking is just to hang out. It's like he's asking you to come over and help him move a couch. Like he's just asking
you. Don't make me be this person.
Right. Yes. Don't make me be this person that has to keep rejecting you. That is a hard feeling, but you guys are doing great. Sticking to your guns. I think after the other thing, and this is a question for you, I have a feeling we're on the same page about this, but is like the concept of like being unavailable. Like, at a certain point, like, I'm just not going to answer the phone anymore. Like, I think when it comes to not answering your phone, some people get this feeling of like, one, that's not nice, or what if it's an emergency, or like not being able to not answer your phone when people call. I'm pretty much like, I don't know, if I can't talk in that moment or I don't want to talk in that moment, I'm an advocate of like, don't answer the phone, call the person back when you can actually give them the appropriate time and attention. Depend on the person. Like, I think you can pick up and be like, hey, can't talk right now. Can I call you back? And that person will be fine. But yeah, sometimes it's hard for people to just be like, I see my brother calling and I'm not picking up.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm very much like, if I'm not in the mode to do it, if I am in the mode to do it and I'm literally just like in the middle of something, I will sometimes pick up and be like, I'll call you back in 5 minutes. But if I'm not in the mode, I will just, again, I think there is this feeling of, because you can get in touch with people in so many different ways, that you should be able to get in touch with people immediately in so many different ways. And if especially it's Valentine's Day, you're out to dinner with your wife, I could see why I think it would be perfectly acceptable to not answer texts from your brother that you've already spoken to that day until the next day. And if it was an emergency, I would imagine he would text you whatever the emergency was.
Right. And maybe that is part of her trigger, is like, why are you even...
Maybe it's for the husband. Yeah.
Yeah. with the husband, why are you even answering this right now? I really do enjoy just leave your phone in the car or put your phone elsewhere when we are having a Valentine's Day or a romantic dinner or a dinner that's meant to be for us. You shouldn't even be having access to your phone at all right now. Like, just, we're together. Don't even answer it. If you get a text, it really is such a nuanced cultural difference, almost a culture that is like person dependent, family dynamic, like family of origin dependent, where some people have a personal culture or a family culture of like, we will always be accessible to. Some people have that, everybody. Like, I will always answer my phone. That's more of like a, boomer kind of thing. Like, I will answer my phone anytime it rings. And then I think kind of like as you move down, there's like these differing cultures around how accessible are you at all times of the day? If you have kids, it's different, but I'm even like, I've had to do that with myself where I'm kind of like, if we're doing this recording and I, put my phone on do not disturb, or I leave my phone in the other room, is it possible that one of my kids like falls at school and breaks their arm and they need to get a hold of me? Sure. But I have to tell myself like the people that are with her are going to handle that better than I will from here. So like, I need to relinquish needing to be accessible at any moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think her triggered is more with the brother, with her actual husband, because I would imagine if this happened a few times, like, and the brother had a nice boundaried relationship with his brother, he could say, "What do you do?" Like, it's his brother too. I could say, like, "I already told you, like, we're doing just us tonight. Why do you keep calling?" Like,
We're
maybe
just
she wants
not even answering.
Yeah.
Like, just kind of being like, don't answer that.
I agree. The triggered is more with the husband. I think that's more of a validating trigger too, because you can't control anyone else's boundaries but your own.
Yeah. And if you're not finding it funny, and it's not part of your like fun dinner dynamic of like making fun of the brother and laughing at how he's like so desperately, if that's not fun for you, then I think you can have a conversation with him that's like, your brother has no boundaries. You need to not pick up when he calls, or you don't have to answer him back right away.
Right. Or at least when you're with me, because like that's my boundary for him, for you.
Totally. Totally.
So I think it's like a 3 or 4 triggered for the husband who's keeps talking to his brother on Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm.
Who again, I think it's just funny. I'd be like, like, what's going on when they're married? I would make that like the whole dinner conversation. Like, they cannot spend one day just the two of them. They need a buffer. Maybe things are tense there. I would like make fun of it. I would say it's like a 2 for the brother, because like he can keep asking till he's blue in the face if you're not saying yes or not picking up.
I agree. It is annoying. It's annoying, but I find it like funny annoying, because you know what he's calling about. If he was like being manipulative and like saying there was some emergency or something, that would be, but he's just literally like, you sure? Still? How about now? What about later? What about, right. It's just, that is kind of funny. Yeah, I would agree with those scores, but yeah, set some boundaries. Cell phones are great, but it sometimes is very stressful to be constantly accessible and feel like you have to be taking care of everybody's emotional needs while you're just going through your day. So put it down, put it away, be with the people that you're with. And then when you're bored or you have some time, you're alone later, pick it back up and, oh, wow, sorry, just saw this.
Let's do one more. This one's a voicemail. Again, if you want to leave us a voicemail, you can call 646-363-6294 if you want to leave us a voicemail. This last trigger is a voicemail. Let's roll the tape.
Hey, Jordana, Dr. Naomi. The most recent episode made me think of a situation that I'm curious. I don't know if it's triggered or what, but long story short, I have a 5-month-old and a 2.5-month-old, and we were at family Christmas celebration, and there were 2 other 2 to 2.5-year-olds there. And I kept finding myself kind of like on the floor. I felt like I was babysitting my baby and toddler and the other toddler. And I'm like, why am I doing, like, why am I alone? Like, it's one thing if I'm doing it with the other mom, happens to be my sister and my best friend. But I was like, why am I doing this? Like, holding a baby and reading books to toddlers. And it felt there's a lot of postpartum and sleep deprivation happening there. My baby was only 3.5 months at that point. But the most recent episode made me realize, like, okay, I'm just more of a facilitating parent, whereas my sister is more of a they'll figure it out parent. So I guess my question is can I still be triggered if I'm putting myself in this situation to facilitate if somebody else isn't, even though that's not their parenting style? But, like, if I didn't, then my toddler would just be upset because the other toddler is making her cry. And she was 6, so that was a whole other level. But yeah, I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that. Like, it's a very hard thing to navigate. Like, if you're a facilitative parent, like, my sister probably thinks I'm, overbearing, but it's just so much easier if there's at least eyes on them, so that if a tip is about to happen, I can protect both of them. It's not just me trying to protect my kid. I want to be able to see if my kid is doing something that poorly too. So I don't know. Curious what your thoughts are. Thanks again, and love the show.
It's funny. Is that like a thing where, like, you're in a group setting, sometimes one person's just watching everyone's kids? You're like, I don't know, it's never been me.
It's just exactly right. No, I've seen that type of thing before, and it hasn't been me, but I'm kind of, my thought on it is like, that's what they want to do, or they're enjoying that, or that's what makes them feel better or safer in the moment. So long story short, I think, no, if you're choosing, if the write-in was, or if the call-in was, we were at this gathering, one of the kids like scratched the other kid's face and nobody was watching, and I was the only one who was like intervening in this physical altercation. Okay, yeah, I get it. Triggering. But because you decided to preemptively prevent a disagreement between the toddlers, or maybe some type of maybe she is more concerned that her daughter is going to be mean or not share. I mean, it's very normal. She said these kids are like between 2 and 3 or so. It's very normal that they don't play that well together. They're selfish. They don't really like to share. They don't, I just find this age is so funny. Like, I just saw the other day, this little girl that came to one of the kids' games with like this backpack filled with toys, and then like spread them all over this blanket. And then as soon as any other kids came by, she like ran over, like in a panic, scooped up all her toys and shoved them back in the backpack. So like none of the other children would be able to get near them. So I think it's very normal that there are these little altercations over toys and things. And I think she's, trying to prevent, maybe her daughter has trouble sharing. The fact that she is, I think what I heard her say is she's simultaneously driving, pumping, and calling into a podcast.
She's a maximizer.
She is a maximizer.
Yeah.
And
I can see
probably just has a mind that's going a mile a minute.
I could see, though, feeling like a little resentful if everyone's like, is anyone concerned about me that I'm holding this kid and watching all of your kids? Like, does anyone, and she talks about like postpartum stuff. She's like, does anyone appreciate that I'm watching all these kids for everyone and I'm doing this? And I think it's almost maybe more about that, or like, where are the other, maybe she like does this thing because like she feels like it should be done, but she kind of feels like everyone should do it. So when other people aren't doing it, it's like, oh, they're just kind of like using me to watch everyone's kids.
Yes. Or maybe she saw that as an opportunity to connect to the other moms who are her sister and her best friend. Like, we will all be on the floor playing with the kids. I mean, I don't, where are the dads in this situation? That's another question too. But like, just kind of, maybe she's envisioned it as like an opportunity for us to all hang out on the floor with the kids and chit chat. And the 2 other moms are probably like having a nice adult conversation on the side, and she's like, feels like the hired help. So I get that. But I would recommend is get up and go enjoy the adult conversation. And then if the kids are not being safe, and by that, I don't mean like arguing over a toy. Like I do think that is good stuff for them to figure out. But yes, when it comes to 2-year-olds, if there's an argument over a toy, it might end up in a snatch and grab run situation, or perhaps a little, push or shove or something like that, in which case you probably would want to intervene if that happens. But this idea of the differing parenting styles and some people being more of a, kind of, I like the word.
Kids are fine on the floor. Right?
Yeah. The wording that she used.
Well, let's say she's watching these kids, and then the kids that aren't hers, or one of the kids that are spills something.
Mm-hmm.
What's the etiquette? What's the parenting etiquette there? Is it like
right.
your kid is, or is it like she's, you know what I mean? I could see where she'd be like, am I now?
Yes.
And then some parents are again, maybe like a little bit more laid back, or we'll figure it out later. But then I could see where some might be like, oh, she's watching them. It's cool.
Well, I mean, in that case, I think if she's got a 3-month-old like strapped to her on a carrier, then the idea that she's going to get up and go get a towel and clean up a mess, like at the same time, like, no, I think she's got to be like, hey guys, we have a spill, can somebody
Especially
please?
if it's her sister.
Yeah. She talks about even the idea of like, if we were to do, I don't know, you'll find out what your parenting style is. We don't know yet, but mine is definitely like a let them figure it out kind of parenting style. So I don't know that that's for everybody. Like some people do feel every moment of parenting is an opportunity to inject yourself and like, again, she's a maximizer, like maximize the opportunity to teach a lesson about sharing and nonviolence. And these are all opportunities to teach and learn and grow, versus kind of trusting nature and human nature to kind of provide those lessons.
And in some ways, it's just like anything else. It's like your threshold for something is sort of the amount that you're going to get involved in. Like, so if it was like, if you have a roommate and it's about, and you feel like you're always cleaning the apartment, but like the roommate doesn't mind if it's like a little less clean than you, there can be a resentment there, but also like the roommate would have been fine if you didn't do that. So it's kind of like that with the kids. But I think, so then I don't know. Yeah. If you're the person who's always doing the stuff because you have a higher threshold for it, but you don't actually like it, it's kind of a tough situation.
Totally.
You and I are usually not the person with the highest threshold for anything, I would say.
Lowest threshold, you mean?
Or the lowest threshold.
Right. Like we have a pretty high threshold for like whatever's happening is probably going to end up being fine. Not that worried about it. Yeah. I think there's this idea of, and this, I do a lot of work with this with couples where it's kind of like, okay, just, you have to, in order to get along well, there has to be when someone else is relaxing, that has to not bother you, right? If every time your partner's relaxing, or every time in this context, this group of parents, if some of the parents are relaxing, that irritates you, there's something that you either need to ask for the help that you want, or you need to say like, I'm going to relax later. I'm going to let them relax now. But this interpersonal dynamic of your relaxation irritates me is, I think, not a super healthy space.
Where you have to either learn to deal with like the idea that the children are somewhat unsupervised in a safe area, or I'll relax later. It's funny. We had this when we were hosting Christmas where like Mike comes up, I'm speaking to like one of his cousins, and he comes up to me. He's like, can we talk in the other room? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, oh my God, what's happened? Like he got a horrible phone. He goes, we're out of white wine. He's like, we're out of white wine. I don't know what to do. Okay. Well, like there's red wine.
Right.
He's like, what are we going to do? I'm like, people will not have white wine.
Right. That is so me. It
was almost like it was like this crazy emergency.
Yes.
And I'm like, it's you could still be a good host and run out of white wine. It's like you ran out of all of the there's many other kinds
food
of alcohol
or like toilet paper.
Yeah. Right. I'm like, you You want to see a party that's not done well, come to our house for any event.
Right. Totally. The threshold, coming back to the threshold.
Right. It's like, what is your threshold for like other people's and your own, I guess, slight discomfort?
It's so true. I have the same thing. I have the same thing in my marriage. We just had the same thing. We invited some people over. Jeff's been making pizza from scratch. It's delicious. It's amazing. He works really hard at it. And we had some people over to come taste like a new pizza recipe that he was making. And he was like all tense because I guess one of our friends said that we thought it was just going to be their younger daughter, but they were bringing their teenage son also, which we didn't realize. And so
bigger appetite.
So he was like freaking out that there wasn't going to be enough food. And I was like, put some pasta on. We have a jar of Raos. Dump it on top. And like, if he's really hungry, we'll have a whole pot of pasta. He's like, you can't serve jarred sauce when you're inviting someone over for dinner. And I was like, you can't? Like, it's edible. It's food. So we definitely had a little moment there of like, my just being like sitting back, like, relaxing, hanging out with the kids, and he's like running around making a from scratch alla vodka sauce. And I'm like, you're doing this to yourself, like,
right. Or it's like they want everyone to be stressed about it.
Usually it's like the reverse, like male female dynamic. Like I have a lot of patients that are very irritated by their female patients that are irritated by their male husbands sitting on the couch. Like just watching their husbands sitting on the couch on their phone is like the most irritating thing in life. And so I think the idea that I was like not part of the stress was making the stress even worse. So yeah, I could see there's differing dynamics, but this isn't even her partner. This is her sister and her friend. And it sounds like in this dynamic, which is probably might happen more often, you either have to choose to say, hey, I'm more concerned about this, so I'm going to take charge here. Or maybe you do want to see what it feels like to sit back and wait for somebody to start crying. And then when somebody starts crying or whining or
see who runs over.
Yeah, gets shoved or whatever the thing is that happens. You run over. Parenting in public spaces is hard too, which is why I think maybe there might be some fear of like, what if my kid pushes another kid down? Right? That's like, there's this shame in that. There's this feeling of like,
right.
Oh my
and
God,
I wasn't on top of it.
Yeah. My kid is like being violent now. And it's very normal. Like if she shoves another kid and the kid falls on their butt, I mean, they're 2. How far are they falling? Right? Like they fall on their big diapered bottom. But if they do, I think this listener probably feels like, oh my God, that would be terrible. And I'd have to have a whole talk and it'd be a whole issue. It's, so I do think around parenting issues in public, there is this feeling of like, I need to make sure that my kid is being socially acceptable.
For your own judgment, for fear of your own, right. But clearly these moms don't have that.
No. So. Let them fly.
Yeah,
it's very freeing. I don't know if your daughter has trouble sharing or if she is the type that might shove another kid down or whatever. So if that's the case, this might be your, green light to be like, let the butts fall where they may.
Yeah.
And
if
the
in a
other
relatively
moms
controlled environment,
concerned, then they'll come over and help, and might be good for you to relax a little bit, let things unfold.
Yeah. And as someone who doesn't have kids yet, I guess like the fear I would imagine is like what you would hear at the park, like, where is this kid's mother?
Yes, that is like the ultimate.
Where is their? I mean, it's your sister and the friend, so I don't think it would be like. But I could see in a less personal space, that would be the big fear.
Yes. Yep. That big fear of like, who is watching? Oh my God, this child that just is, push this other kid down, or she's, not sharing and nobody's intervening, or, that this child's running wild, or
right.
Where's the mother? Yes, totally. Yeah. I think that is a shameful thing that, speaking of that, like I've often like we go to Six Flags a lot. And sometimes I'll see like a kid walking around and I'm sort of like, is that kid lost? Like, where's the mom? And I'm very careful about like stepping back and just observing for a long time, because I know the shame that it would cause the mother if like I kind of went over and intervened and said like, oh, did you lose your mommy? And the mom would be like, no, I'm standing right here. Like I'm right here. Like I haven't lost my child, or my child is not unattended. So I know that that's like a trigger for a lot of moms. That is the fear. So yeah, parenting is tough. But I do think if we did a parenting podcast, it would be kind of skewed advice. And a lot of the type A's probably would not listen to it or enjoy the advice.
We could call the podcast, Where is Her Mother? Where is their mother? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is really funny. What would I give this? I want to just come back really quickly because it's going to affect my score. The idea of the postpartum mom and the like, who's taking care of me? Because I think that is a big, which you're about to embark into, but this feeling of like, everyone's obsessed with this baby. Everyone's like thinking about everything else except for me. I'm obsessed. I have to take care of these babies. I'm taking care of everything else. Like, who is taking care of me? So I think the 3-month-old factors into the score here, but still I would say I'm going to give this a 3. I think if you could stand up, walk away, see what happens. And then I would raise the score if like some kind of chaos went on and you were the only one.
Or if like she asked someone to like, I think I would raise the score if she like said, could someone help me out here? And no, everyone was like, you got it.
Yeah. But I could also see being the mom where someone's like, hey, can you help me out here? And I'm like, there's nothing to do.
Yeah.
Kind of like the dinner where I'm like, yeah, I could throw some pasta on the stove and pour some Rayos on top.
That's the extent of my intervention here.
Other than that, there's no real problem here.
I think too, as it stands, because no one asked her to do this. Again, if she asked for help, or if the other kids were like clearly misbehaving and she was like having to be the one to, depends how much she's doing, really. If there is a lot to be done, like if there's a mess and only one person is helping, I could see why that would be triggering.
But just like entertaining the children when they are all like hanging out together, I don't think that's necessary. Like, that's the beauty of them together. They can kind of entertain each other.
Good luck with the pumping.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I hope you got home safe.
Yeah. Oh, and she's probably pumping while listening to this. So enjoy. All right. We did it.
So many dilemmas, so little time. Thank you guys for writing in really great questions. But yeah, that's our time.
Great work today.